The fictional Fast and Furious universe is undeniably pretty crazy already. People regularly defy the laws of physics and survive stunts that no mere mortal should be able to pull off. But despite all the chaos, there are some fan theories out there that are even more unbelievable than what we've already seen on the big screen. Today we're going to take a look at some of these ideas that are so crazy they might actually be true. If you're afraid of F9 spoilers, you might not want to take any chances. But if you're feeling bold, let's take a look at how wild things could get. Before he was a member of the Fast family, Brian O'Connor was an undercover officer who was supposed to be arresting Dom Toretto, not taking part in street races with him. Reddit user Tuna White on Crust believes that Brian never stopped being undercover and keeping tabs on Dom. Even his relationship with Mia was just a way to integrate himself into the Fast family and cause his loyalty not to be questioned. This could explain why Border Control didn't arrest Dom in Los Bandoleros. They received word that Brian was on the case and trying to get him for something bigger. This all sounds nuts, but it could help explain a seemingly big plot hole concerning the fourth film, Fast and Furious. Why would the FBI hire Brian after he went rogue? It doesn't make sense if he was just an average officer. But if he was really an expert undercover infiltrator, then suddenly this hiring decision seems more rational. This theory could also help explain why Dom has escaped so many situations with Brian's help. When Brian rescued Dom from a prison bus, why was there no police escort to make the process more difficult? It's almost like everyone was in on Brian's plan and hoping that by releasing Dom, they would ultimately capture more criminals. Speaking of other criminals, let's take a look at Deckard Shaw. For a long time, he's been loathed by many fans for taking the life of Han in the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Not only did he apparently take out Han, but it seems like everyone just forgave him for it. But now that we know Han is apparently alive in F9, maybe Deckard can finally be universally redeemed. Not only is he not someone who destroyed Han, but one fan theory believes that this character is much more than he appears. Reddit user ConnorWS15 noticed some surprising similarities between Deckard Shaw and Frank Martin from The Transporter. Obviously, they're both played by actor Jason Statham, but could they be the same character who goes by two different names? They're both talented at hand-to-hand combat and driving dangerously, so it's possible that Frank Martin was a code name. Unfortunately for fans of this theory, these characters don't share many similarities other than their skills. But in a world where Han is still alive, clearly anything's possible. If the Fast and Furious franchise and The Transporter happened in the same universe, it wouldn't really be too surprising. But there is one possible crossover that might change the way you binge Netflix forever. Reddit user NoCut12 theorizes that the Fast and the Furious movies and the NBC sitcom Parks and Recreation take place in the same universe. Just think, if Andy Dwyer had made the police force, maybe he could have worked alongside Brian. In Fast 5, we saw some news footage about Brian helping Dom escape from police custody, and this segment was hosted by none other than actor Jay Jackson, who plays Perd Hapley on Parks and Rec. Jackson has played a news reporter on Scandal, The Mentalist, and In the Real World. According to this theory, Perd improved his articulation and scored a better job outside of Pawnee, Indiana, where Parks and Rec takes place. Having one actor appear in two different roles isn't unheard of, but the fact that Jackson keeps playing a news reporter is interesting. After all, would it really be that crazy if these two franchises existed in the same universe? Jay Jackson was clearly born to be a reporter, but was Dom Toretto not born but created? In 2010, the rights for the Terminator franchise were up for grabs, and Universal was hoping to scoop them up until the bidding got too high. It's thought that Universal wanted the rights in order to combine the action-packed world of the Terminator with everyone's favorite fast car franchise, the Fast and the Furious. It might have sounded kind of crazy at one point, but when Brixton Lore's cyborg self was introduced, that kind of changed the game. Some fans believe that it was Dom Toretto that Universal wanted to transform into the Terminator, or reveal that he had been one all along. In fact, many think that Dom is secretly a cyborg, and it just hasn't been officially revealed yet. Even after all these years, we still can't get enough of the Fast and Furious franchise. But has the ultimate sequel already been created? Some fans believe that the movie The Last Witch Hunter takes place in the same universe as The Fast and the Furious. Not only that, but they think that Vin Diesel's character Calder is really just Dom Toretto at some point in the future. This theory actually has some similarities to the previous one. Both rely on the fact that Dom is seemingly immortal and can pull off feats that mere mortals really should not be able to do. Calder also has an affinity for nice cars, which could be a callback to one of his previous lives and identities. Even though Dom's been in plenty of movies, that's a very small portion of time for 800-year-old Calder. The Last Witch Hunter director Breck Eisner even admitted that a car peeling out at the end of the movie was an homage to the Fast and Furious franchise. Although he didn't confirm the theory, he did say that he liked the idea of Dom becoming Calder at some point in the future. There are a lot of questions fans have about the Fast and Furious franchise, and the trailer for F9 just gave us about a million more. But one of the biggest is, how is Han still alive? He was apparently destroyed by Deckard Shaw back in Tokyo Drift, and we even saw the Fast family have a funeral for him. And yet there he is in the trailer eating snacks and looking very much alive. Did he fake his own demise so he wouldn't have to share his food? One of the most out there theories surrounding Han's return is that he's not the same Han we all came to know and love. Maybe Han is the robot instead of Dom. Could Cypher have created or at least figured out how to utilize a humanoid-shaped robot? Even more unlikely is the idea that Han was a robot the entire time. So maybe he didn't perish in the crash but still needed time to get some much-needed repairs. Besides Han, there's another character the F9 trailer left us with major questions about, and that's Jacob Toretto, the man Dom called his little brother. But while everyone's trying to figure out who this Jacob guy is, beyond being a fast car driving assassin, Reddit user Cloud1131 has some interesting ideas on the matter. In The Fast and the Furious, there's a scene which shows a pretty rough photograph of Kenny Linder, the man Dom blamed for the loss of his father. Is it just me, or does he kind of look like John Cena, who plays Jacob Toretto? Is it possible that Jacob isn't Dom's biological sibling? And there was more going on with that fatal car crash than we thought? Something had to have caused the estrangement between Dom and Jacob, which means there's definitely more to the story here. It's clear that whatever Jacob's backstory is, it's not going to be short on drama. But Reddit user Dave_Coon believes he's not the only character with a backstory most people don't know about. They think there's something suspicious about Leo and Santos, and that they might not have been dedicated to Dom and his family. In fact, they believe that Leo and Santos might have been working for Deckard Shaw the whole time. Shaw was putting together his own team, and it's possible that he used these two in order to get information on Dom. After all, Shaw did know a lot about Dom and his team when they finally met. When Shaw and Dom met, Shaw asserts that Dom's preoccupation with his family is a major weakness. But how did he know about that? And if Leo and Santos really were spying for Shaw, he could have been referencing this during the confrontation. The one big issue with this theory is that Shaw supposedly got his intel from Hobbs' partner, Riley. But if Leo and Santos did have something to do with the leak, it would make these characters much more important. Of course, we're all excited to see what new twists and turns F9 has in store for us. But I can't be the only one who's also getting excited about the 10th Fast and Furious film. Many fans of the franchise are aware of the fact that Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson famously didn't get along with each other during filming. There was so much animosity that they refused to share scenes together while working on The Fate of the Furious. But things have seemed better between them lately, and Twitter user Sean Wren believes they might put their differences aside and work together. They predict that the 10th movie will be about Han seeking revenge on Shaw for the events of Tokyo Drift. It's possible that Dom would side with Han, which could put him at odds with Hobbs and his team. These two opposing sides could end up fighting against one another until a worse threat like Etienne comes along. There's definitely no shortage of exciting moments in the Fast and Furious franchise, but it hasn't accumulated so many fans just because of all the over-the-top action sequences. Instead, it's the characters and their relationships with one another that make the series so compelling. And there's no doubt that the loss of Paul Walker was devastating to everyone. Did Paul Walker's tragic real-life accident cause a major difference between The Fate of the Furious and the rest of the films? Everyone knows that if there's one thing the Fast family loves more than a good heist, it's a relaxing barbecue and a few cold ones. For most of the movies, the family's beverage of choice is unquestionably Corona. Whenever they reach for a drink, that's what they end up with. Until the fate of the Furious. The lack of Coronas is pretty odd, but it may be a touching tribute to the loss of Walker. Without Brian around, the world of the Fast and Furious was altered forever, and it's possible this simple beverage switch was meant to represent this major change. Everyone knows that Dom Toretto loves his family, but did you know that actor Vin Diesel loves the role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons? In fact, there are some fans who believe this game helped influence the entire Fast and Furious franchise. On the topic of Dungeons & Dragons, Diesel once remarked, "It helps you think of a story like no other hobby does." Screenwriter Chris Morgan said that he and Diesel would often approach the script as if they were working as dungeon masters. But some fans believe that Dungeons & Dragons had an even bigger impact than simply teaching Diesel how to craft a fictional universe. They believe that Dom has leveled up as a character over the years, and has acquired artifact-level items that have become part of his identity. Reddit user Dr. Demento expanded on this theory by describing Dom's enemies as bad D&D players. They're single-minded in their evilness and only care about winning, not about working with a team, having a good time, or telling a good story. There was a time when we thought Mia Toretto's story was over. She retired along with Brian, which is why her return in F9 is so significant. But having Mia reappear has caused many fans to question what effect this will have on Brian. Is he really going to stay home and babysit while she takes part in dangerous missions? Some fans believe Brian may lose his life off-screen, putting an end to his story and freeing up Mia to take part in the action. But others believe this would be disrespectful to Paul Walker's memory. Others think it's possible that Brian may come back via the use of CGI and some special stand-ins. After the tragic passing of Paul, his brothers Cody and Caleb helped portray Brian so that filming could finish. Since Vin Diesel posted a photo of himself and Cody on set, this understandably has people wondering if Brian will make another appearance. It's no secret that we've seen plenty of the characters in the Fast and Furious franchise do things that humans really shouldn't be capable of doing without getting horrifically injured. But have you ever noticed that the cars perform similar feats on the regular? Reddit user The Mustang Man thinks that it's possible these vehicles actually come from the future. While the cars from the first 3 movies match up with the years, the vehicles in the 4th through 7th movies are newer than the cars that should have existed based on the chronological order of the films. This theory throws time travel into the mix as an explanation, and claims that Brian may have had access to time travel technology thanks to his connections to the FBI. Maybe the FBI didn't want to risk messing up the timeline too much, but snagged a couple of future cars just for fun. Even before F9 was announced, there were some fans who were holding out hope that Han was still alive somehow. Now that he's returned, it's only natural for fans to start questioning all the characters in the franchise we've said goodbye to, and wondering if they'll come back. Top on the list right now is Giselle, who we met in Fast and Furious. She and Han were in a relationship together, and she sacrificed her life for his during Fast and Furious 6. At the time, it certainly looked as though she was really gone, but we didn't see much of the aftermath of the incident. We never saw her body, and while Han had a funeral, there was none for Giselle. Plus, people are surviving crazy situations in this franchise all the time, and Giselle had a lot of tactical training. Since Letty and now Han have come back, is it really that insane to suggest that we would see Giselle again? There are a lot of constants in the Fast and Furious universe. Dom's always preoccupied with the idea of family. The crew always manages to find one more job to do, and gravity is defied on the regular. But with any long-running franchise, there are going to be some films that stand out above the others. Road and Track even has a theory about which Fast and Furious films are the best, and it has to do with the way they're numbered. They believe that the best movies in the series are odd-numbered. Of course, this theory is pretty subjective, but let's take a look at the lineup. The Fast and the Furious obviously kicked off the whole franchise, but its sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious, had a lot less fans. Many feel that Tokyo Drift has its issues, but that it's still better than any even-numbered film in the series. For this theory to be true, the majority of fans would have to believe that Fast 5, Furious 7, and F9 are better than Fast and Furious 6, and The Fate of the Furious. I'll let you decide for yourself if you think this theory is true or not. Are there any of these fan theories you think are crazy enough to be true, or do you think they're just plain old crazy? Let us know what you think in the comments section below, and then click on that subscribe button for more videos from us here at CBR. Bye for now!